Good morning and welcome to the Legislative Assembly, to our guests. We are having a public hearing this morning on the NWT and Nunavut Friendship Centres. And before we start, I would like Kevin to say a prayer.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We are grateful for our Northwest Territories, for our homes, for our neighbours, and for our freedom. We are grateful for the opportunity we have to meet here and to serve our fellow citizens. May we bring both the strength of our convictions and the willingness to listen and learn to our discussions. May we consider the needs and aspirations of all our fellow citizens in our decisions. May we always represent our constituents with dignity, integrity, and honesty.
Thank you, Kevin. This is a one-item agenda. The agenda is the presentation, and we'll start by having people introduce themselves, starting over there with RJ.
Good morning, RJ Simpson, MLA Hay River North.
Kevin O'Reilly, Frame Lake.
Good morning, MLA for Getcho, Michael Nadley.
Good morning, Danny McNeely, Satu Region.
Good morning, Shane Thompson, the Henday Region.
Welcome.
My name is Julie Green. I'm the MLA for Yellowknife Centre. And to my left is Lee Selleck, the researcher for the committee. And bounding in here at any time is Doug Shardy, who is the committee clerk. So we'd like to invite you to come up to sit at the table, whoever is making the presentation, or all of you. We have a sound technician with us, and he controls the microphones. So don't worry about those. We'll ask to start by having you introduce yourselves, please.
My name is Tony Ravska. I'm president of NTNU.
Thank you.
Abby Crook. I'm the vice president of the NTNU.
Bernice Furlong, I'm the secretary for NTNU.
Sherry Cadrone, the Northern Rep for the NTNU Council of Friendship Centres and board member with the National Association of Friendship Centres.
Okay.
Kyle Bird, the executive director of the NTNU Council of Friendship Centres.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. So we'll turn the floor over to you for your presentation, and when you indicate you're finished, we will take questions.
So, good morning, ministers. I'd first like to acknowledge the traditional lands of the Acato Territory, and we've gone through the introductions already. The Northwest Territories Nunavut Council of Friendship Centres, the NTNU CFC, is proposing a partnership agreement between the Northwest Territories and Nunavut Council of Friendship Centres and the GNWT for the NTNU Council of Friendship Centres to act as a third-party service delivery organization. Our background: the Friendship Centres began in the mid-1950s as Aboriginal peoples migrated from reserves and communities to urban areas. The early model of Friendship Centres was that of a referral agency between established social service organizations and urban residents. Funding was dependent on individual volunteers and their fundraising abilities. As the stream of urban Aboriginals grew, it became evident that the additional services would be required. So in the late 1960s, Friendship Centres began organizing into provincial territorial associations known as PTAs. This gave a unified body aimed at providing administrative support to each local Friendship Centre within the PTA jurisdiction. In 1972, the Canadian government recognized the importance of the Friendship Centre movement and implemented the Migrating Native Peoples Program, providing operational funding for 40 centres across Canada. The Migrating Native Peoples Program was renamed the Aboriginal Friendship Centre Program in 1998. Today, the Aboriginal Friendship Centre Program provides core operational funding to 118 local friendship centres across Canada. Friendship centres historically have been the main starting point for Aboriginals upon arrivals in cities and towns. with new policies that reflect friendship centers be required to accommodate Inuit, Métis, and non-Aboriginal in programs and services on an annual basis. For example, a Northern Friendship Center could serve over 6,000 people. The first Friendship Center began with the establishment of the Tree of Peace Friendship Center in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. Our purpose: the NTNU Council of Friendship Centers is a non-profit, non-sectarian, autonomous regional agency governed by the Societies Act of the Northwest Territories and its Constitution and bylaws as approved by the membership of the annual General Assemblies. The NTNU Council of Friendship Centers Regional Societies mandate is to provide support and promote the development, management, and administration of territorial and federal initiatives to north of 60 friendship centers.
Excuse me. Would you mind slowing down just a fraction?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
I'm a little nervous.
Okay, I appreciate that.
All right. Each friendship center autonomously provides unique programs and services depending on the needs of the communities, with individual board of directors who mandate the administration. There are 7 friendship centers that operate in the Northwest Territories: Inuvik, Ingamo Hall Friendship Center, Fort Simpson, Dacho Friendship Center, Betchico, Cleacho Friendship Center, Yellowknife, the Tree of Peace Friendship Center, Hay River, Soaring Eagle Friendship Center, Fort Providence, the Satikwe Friendship Center, and in Fort Smith we have Uncle Gabe's Friendship Center. Provincial and territorial associations which administer their programs to their friendship centers provide training, assistance, and coordination of services, lobby, and work with the territorial governments on behalf of the friendship centers. In the Northwest Territory, the PTA operates under the name Northwest Territories Nunavut Council of Friendship Centers with an executive director situated in Yellowknife. The National Association of Friendship Centers, which acts as a central unifying body for friendship center movement and is responsible for program delivery and administration of the urban programming for Indigenous peoples. Some of our programs include employment referrals, education and training, justice, violent crime prevention, after-school children and youth programs, culture programs, drumming, singing, jigging, drum dancing, square dancing, drum making, slipper making, Jenny games, etc. Healthy Babies Initiative, school busing, special holiday events, funeral supportive events, fundraising events, Aboriginal language retention programs and other language deliveries, literacy programs, abuse prevention, drug and alcohol programs, suicide prevention programs, teen pregnancy programs, residential school survivors and family members support, diabetes and disease programs, wellness and counseling, country foods luncheon program, elder social programs, homelessness issue programs, youth teen drop-in centers, HIV, AIDS workshops, networking needs, internet use, food bank, and climate change. Some of our funding partners: Cultural Connections for Aboriginal Youth is federal funding, Christmas hampers from community donations, Aboriginal language projects, GNWT, fitness programs through memberships and rental fees funding source, upgrading and tutoring program, GNWT, youth conference special events, regional health and social services, GNWT, justice program, GNWT, youth center program, GNWT, homelessness fund, GNWT, seniors program is through the NWT Senior Society, language camps projects, GNWT, other language projects, GNWT, Young Canada Works program, federal government, food hamper projects, community donations. We do community bingos and we also receive donations. Our core values. We envision Aboriginal communities where the friendship centers are the principal gathering place. This is constantly aware of healthy living concepts and helps build a community that is healthy spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, which honors and respects the laws of creation and protects our environment, Mother Earth, in all possible ways. That is knowledgeable, proud of its heritage, understanding its history and protects, honor, and process of cross-cultural understanding, which respects its children and youth, promotes and encourages educational pursuits, where all members have the opportunity to develop their skills, knowledge, and power, where its members become involved in matters that may affect the community, are kept informed of issues to keep their citizens informed and involved in urban settings as well as their home community. We bridge the gap between the Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal community. Our mission is to assist in the establishment, monitoring, and strengthening of Aboriginal Friendship Centres and their provincial territorial association across Canada. In order for them to continue providing high quality of cultural reinforcement, preservation, strengthening, and community development services to Aboriginal people. Through the Friendship Centres, individuals magnify their power to control their lives and increase capacity. Our values: we serve the community, unite the community, support the community, motivate the community, provide wellness for the community, help others to walk in two worlds, and we empower the community. Our strengths: infrastructure, local delivery sites. We have mortgage-free buildings, we're financially prudent building management. We have community focus, strong community regional involvements, nationwide network. We're apolitical, representing 4 of 5 Northwest Territories administrative regions. We're culturally sensitive, good volunteer base, non-governmental, and unbiased local support with national capacity. We have a youth focus, direct youth involvement on all levels. Youth-driven initiatives through urban partnerships. Friendship Centres act as youth hubs in the communities. Our services: we provide strong governance structure, core values, service delivery, advocacy, cultural focus, strong regional reputation, strong national reputation for non-government service provider, proven track record, strong funding, administrative guidelines. Our weakness: capacity, need for additional funding for stability, no capacity to increase new business development, no funding to develop new Friendship Centre in the Sahtu region. Communication: intermittent board communication, lack of communication strategy, and no government communication strategy. Administration: increased program coordination required, increased administration coordination required, lack of financial and human resources, and heavy administrative burden. Our opportunities: develop labor market programs, educating about vocational demand categories and business development. Technology: expanding relationships with First Nations groups, Métis, Inuit, GNWT, Government of Canada, nonprofit organizations, Business Development Investment Corporation, and industry partnerships. Our threats: technology, competing programs, government programs, national Aboriginal organizations, other nonprofit organizations. Funding sources: the funding sources are not consistent. Federal funding can change mandates. Our strategic goals is a labor market program. The NTNU Council of Friendship Centres will develop and implement a unified program based on community needs for training to employment programs across the Northwest Territories Friendship Centres, building on funding structures, measurements already in place through the National Association of Friendship Centres to ensure proper accountability and accurate fund distribution. 1, develop a unified program structure, create job search tactics at Friendship Centres, create employment workshops, incorporate online strategies focusing on education, participate in coordinated labor activities. Our second goal: financial security. The NTNU Council of Friendship Centres will focus on developing financial security for long-term financial sustainability and success of its programs. This overcomes administration challenges and increases the capacity to deliver culturally sensitive programs. The objectives: complete legal structure assurances, proposal structure, improve accounting practices. Our third goal is to improve communication. Improving communication is a challenge due to the NTNU Council of Friendship Centres' expansive spread across the territories. Through a strategic approach, through communication, the NTNU Council of Friendship Centres will approach the problem holistically by pursuing various objectives that will increase communication capacity, membership involvement, and public awareness. Our objectives: develop a communication strategy, develop online presence, develop branding strategy for the NTNU Council of Friendship Centres. Our fourth goal is to increase overall satisfaction. Through an increase of workplace satisfaction and participation, the NTNU Council of Friendship Centres can attract more vibrant and skilled employees and volunteers that want to deliver effective results in communities. This would overcome capacity and administration challenges and although the NTNU Council of Friendships and allow the NTNU Council of Friendship Centers to secure funding sources and deliver successful programs through engagement. The objectives: incorporate technology, increase youth involvement, increase elder involvement. Our fifth goal is to increase membership. The NTNU Council of Friendship Centers has been approached by many communities in the north to deliver friendship centers to develop friendship centers to help members and increase membership. By increasing membership and members, NTNU Council of Friendship Centers can increase capacity and will be the only non-governmental organization that effectively coordinates and delivers programs in all Northwest Territories administrative regions, while remaining apolitical to ensure the needs of the membership are met and increase community involvement. Our objectives: gather a list of interested communities, create an action plan to recruit more members. Our evaluation plan from the year of 2017 to 2022 is to review our strategic plan quarterly, assess feasibility every AGM, provide audited statements, project expenses, leadership reports on strategic plans, task force report to membership with 360-degree feedback, provide AGM reports, project expenses, leadership report on strategic plans, and task force report to membership. The Northwest Territories Nunavut Council of Friendship Centers has overcome some major milestones through fiscal prudence and strong volunteer efforts by community members across the Northwest Territories. This plan will be the first plan initiated to overcome some existing and future hurdles that present a challenge to centers from effectively delivering continuous programs to communities. The NTNU Council of Friendship Centers and its executive are now looking to build a stronger council and membership base going forward. This united effort, strong resolve, and understanding of financial prudence makes NTNU Council of Friendship Centers well equipped to overcome the challenges and begin to effectively leverage strong opportunities. Consensus shows that 50 to 70% of all Aboriginal people now live in urban areas across Canada. As Northwest Territories aims to increase employment and resource deployment to its population, real grassroots solutions sensitive to Aboriginal culture and community dynamics are needed. The Northwest Territories Council of Friendship Centers and the PTA are well positioned to be apolitical grassroots leaders in these efforts. The organization already has strong financial funding criteria with measurables and reporting criteria to ensure programs are effectively delivered and cataloged. It is expected that the fulfillment of this strategic plan will be an important milestone in helping people and the people of the Northwest Territories. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cadron, for that presentation. Does anyone have any questions on the presentation? RJ?
Thank you. So I guess the thrust of this is that the obviously goal to develop the friendship centers, the NTNU, into something, like you said, branded, something that's more accessible. A larger organization, I guess, because right now it seems like there's independent friendship centers, and I see a lot of what you're talking about is leveraging the different friendship centers so you can have something with more presence and more capability. And you mentioned at the very beginning that you're looking to start being a third-party program delivery agency for the GNWT, but isn't that already the case? Because I know, for example, Justice will mandate that people go to do community service with the Friendship Center and things like that. And I know that not everyone you send for community service is actually, it's often babysitting as much as it is them helping. But isn't there agreements that you are compensated for things like that? Or am I mistaken? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Ms. Cadron?
Right now, our center doesn't receive any funding from Justice at all. The courts are mandating clients to come to the Friendship Center to either participate in our programs or to do community service work. This often puts a heavy burden on our staff. As I said, we don't have a lot of administration dollars. So what happens is I have to put a staff aside in order to accommodate that, and that leaves more work that's left being undone and puts more of a burden on the rest of my administrative staff when we're responsible for these clients. We are there to help them. We do build relationships with these clients and help them to move forward, but it does take a lot of work, and like I said, our administration, we have a very small administration budget to hire more staff.
Thank you, Ms. Cadron. Additional questions? Mr. Simpson?
Thank you. So are you looking for to be a third-party agency for justice and for ECE, or are you looking for a total GNWT contract? I'm not quite sure how these things work. Thank you, Ms. Chair.
I guess, I guess what we're looking for is, we do deliver all these programs. We assist various local resources. When they need something, we're there to provide or to try and assist with them. What we are looking for, I guess, is to sort of coordinate at the NTNU level, much like the provincial offices do. We have a territorial office here that tries to provide the assistance to the various local centers, and a lot of the local centers, for example, Hay River, we might provide services to Fort Res and Enterprise, the Reserve, and Hay River. So we have a large area where we try to provide supportive services and programming of what we have. But we're looking for, I guess, is to support us at the PTA level, where we need the support at that level to assist friendship centers with program deliveries, if I'm on the right track here. For example, I believe we have a program now under the health initiatives where we are, any community can phone and ask for support under the health program that we have currently. But what we're looking for basically is support at the PTA level, at our territorial association level, because we have one person working in there, and we need the support to continue to, I guess, focusing on the actual needs in the communities, delivering programs.
Thank you, Ms. Crook. Mr. Thompson? Oh, sorry, Ms. Cadron.
Just a little bit more to add to that. The way that it works right now is the individual friendship centers apply for the funding from the GNWT, and we apply for multiple pots. There is very few departments that we don't address. And it brings a lot of work to the centers because you've got multiple reports for it. So the overall goal is, if you can look into the package that we gave you, how much money we get from the GNWT, is if that funding went directly to the NTNU Council of Friendship Centers to distribute to the local centers, whether it's that amount or more, because our infrastructure is already in place. I guess it's a matter of cutting out, the middleman, so to speak, and just to have it funnel right through like we do with our federal funding. Our federal funding comes in, and the NTNU is who distributes it to our local centers, and they also do the monitor, the reporting, and the accountability that we report back to the National Association of Friendship Centers.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very familiar with government programs and how the Friendship Center in my riding actually accesses the program. So I guess I'm trying to understand, you're saying that you want all programs, all funding from the territorial government to come to Yellowknife, and then it gets distributed out to the 5 friendship centers out there. Am I understanding that correctly? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Bird?
Yeah, so right now, the NTNU Council of Friend Centers receives administration dollars and funding with agreement between the National Association of Friend Centers and INAC for the Friend Centers. So our office receives administration dollars to administrate this funding that goes to the Friend Centers, but it is also currently in competition with any other NGO or Aboriginal government to apply for. So even the funding that we administer to our Friend Centers is up for grabs. And then we also administer that money is one of our programs is a core like funding, and the other one is a program funding. So what we're essentially asking for is support from the government of the Northwest Territories to receive funding that's a partnership between the NTNU Council of Friend Centers and the GNWT that we just get a funding pot set aside to support our organization. Right now, we don't have any, like none of our friend centers have funding, have received funding from us, or from INAC, or from NAFC, due to what have you, like, maybe the new government, what we think is the new government is negotiating a new program. There's a new government in place, besides, like, it's a new liberal government, right? So now they're creating a new program that we're going to deliver. But right now, there's no funding that is flowing to our friend centers. So they're working on fumes. They're working on hoping that some of this other funding is coming through. There's been delays every year that I have been here for 3 years in funding, which is all ends around like in the fiscal year, right? It goes like April to March, and then funding is always delayed, even if everything is going well. So what we're essentially asking for is a specific type of funding that goes directly to us that we can administer, because we already have the capability to do so. We administer around $3 million to our centers and to other NGOs and Aboriginal governments in the Northwest Territories. So we have the capability. So we're looking for a partnership between the GWT and the NTU to receive a pot of funding that we can administer to our friend centers that can support them during this time of need.
Thank you very much. I'll go back to Mr. Simpson and then Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair. Is this common in other jurisdictions? Like, do the provinces have deals with friendship centers where they fund the provincial organization and then it distributes out? Thank you.
Yes. So Alberta, the Alberta PTA, Provincial Territorial Association, that's in the same position we are. They receive $700,000 from the Alberta government. That just goes directly to them to administer to their friend centers. The Yukon they have one friend center. They receive funding from their government. The Ontario government provides $14 million to their local PTA, which they administer to their friend centers. And Quebec and BC also have the same agreements. So this is where, so we had these discussions when I became the executive director for NTNU, that meeting with all the other executive directors throughout Canada and discussing how do you guys help your centers, right? And with this funding that they receive from the government, they also have so the funding that we do receive as the PTA is only to administer funding. So we don't get any funding for us to meet right now, for us to meet as a board. The money is just for us to administer dollars. So we have to find our own, even the PTA has to find our own funding so we can meet, and the high cost travel every time we meet is like $10,000. So we have to find that money in administration dollars and what have you. And then also that other like I know Alberta, they do like ED retreats, or they do workshops. They support their centers in many different ways with the administration dollars they receive from their provincial government. So there's ways that we'd love to support our centers more with additional funding that we could look into.
Thank you, Mr. Bird. I have Mr. Thompson on my list.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess I'm a little leery, because if we're taking money away from our regional friendship centers to give to the national or to the territorial board, then the programming, all we're doing is moving money around. My understanding in my past experiences is that you're looking for core funding so you guys can actually bring the boards together and to do functional things. I'm looking at some of the things that you have on your list here. Youth Center Initiative. Well, that there is a territorial program that actually spreads across every community. So everybody applies for it. Youth Corp is, again, regional based, and you're allowed to go through it. Youth contribution, same thing. When you do travel, it's based on application based across for all the residents of the Northwest Territory. my understanding, and maybe this is where you can correct me, is you guys need core funding, so you as a board can meet, you guys can develop what you guys are doing. And so you're not trying, if I understand this correctly, you're not trying to take away the money that your local community boards are getting, but to give you a core-based funding. And am I correct in that? So you can actually function as how you're saying presently? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Byrd?
Yes, I would say that the PTA would need core funding, and the way that I've seen from some other agreements, it would be like the Friends Centers always receive a type of core funding, or core like. That's how we present it. So we'd have it like as like some type of other provincial governments have agreement of grant funding. So there's a lot of restrictions to all funding, right? So, all our centers apply for all this funding, but there's certain things they cannot do. They cannot travel, they cannot, and we have a national AGM where we all vote and we all make decisions together, right? We don't have any travel dollars, so whenever our board wants to meet, or whenever we host our AGM, we can't bring in our executive directors and our board members from the other communities, because the NTNU is a board of all the Friends Centers, right? So we come together and try to make a decision like this, where we should be lobbying with our government to start this conversation about how we need funding, because we get all this funding, but it's all for a specific agreement. It's all per a specific program, right? Where we might have so there's like DATO applies for, and a lot of centers apply for an average of 7 programs, and that's including R2. So that's 7 reports they have to do every quarter. And so that takes a lot of time, and that's only for a specific amount of money. So you can't hire somebody full time for $10,000, $5,000. Like there's no way to create enough funding to have another full-time employee for duration past April 1st. So everyone is running on them, just the executive directors. If all the money dries up, they have enough money to hold on to the executive directors until funding comes again, right? Or until the agreements are signed or what have you. So what we find is that our centers are stressed because we only have 1 employee, and if we want to hire, and if we want to have some type of, what do you call it, where you want to have maybe you want to have somebody else take over, and you want to hire an assistant executive director, or you want to have some type of support in your organization besides a volunteer board. We don't have that capacity when you apply for all these fundings. Abby?
I'd like to add to that. The PTA level is there to support the member centers. If there is a problem in the DATO, for example, Zatiqua or Fort Simpson, we try to provide that service and support through the 1 person that we have, which means they have to travel to that community. They assist in program, assisting in program delivery, how to deliver, how to do proposals, to how to access their money, look at the needs of each community. And that's the basic structure we have right now. We have 1 ED to try and provide all these supports, write and help assist with the programs and report writing. And what we're looking for, in essence, is we need more support at the PTA level here in Yellowknife, because we have rent, we have 1 staff, and we don't get enough funding to provide the services or the support people need out in the community.
Thank you, Ms. Crook. Ms. Cadron?
So we're not looking to take away anything from our local friendship centers. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for recognition and enhanced dollars in order for us to bring our members together so that we can share our practices with each other. And we can also look at developing larger projects, for example, with regards to environmental cleanup and training to employment. If we can work together with our other friendship centers to bring them all together and get all on the same path, and we can access federal funding to bring into the north by working together with us, and we can expand these programs into each community for training to employment or environmental cleanup. There are so many things that we can do, but we need the opportunity to be able to bring our memberships together in order for us to develop a long-term strategic plan for how we can address issues in each region and work together. And so it's not, we don't want to take any of this away from our local friendship centers. We're asking for enhanced dollars. Like, for example, the anti-poverty strategy. We actually address all 5 pillars. Our friendship centers have the capability of doing that and bringing in additional funds from the federal government to match, to partner with the GNWT funding.
Thank you, Ms. Cadron. I have Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so I guess I see it's, instead of looking for additional admin staff for each, say, Friendship Center, you're looking for something for at the territorial level to help with the reporting, to help with the applying for all of these grants, to take some of that administrative burden off, because I know that, talking from Sherry, it's a full-time, 1.5 times job just to do all this applying and do all this reporting. Like, the reporting for $1,000 on some of these things is enormous. And so I think that I sort of get what you're going at now. Initially, I thought with Mr. Thompson too, what, do you want more money for Yellowknife? My job is to be wary of that. But I see what's going on now. And so in a sense, it's core funding for the territorial level to provide assistance to the individual friendship centers. And I guess I see the value in that, because I know I've had companies approach me, you talk about environmental cleanup, approach me about doing things with the former NTCL lands throughout the territory. And they want to do training, local training. And that would be a perfect opportunity to have people from in Hay River and Inuvik and all these different areas come together and coordinate something like that. So I think that I have a better understanding now, but initially I was sort of shocked there, like Mr. Thompson as well. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Mr. Thompson? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's the other part is we're also working on developing a marine industry development project, which I'm not sure whether you're aware of it or not, but it affects every region in the territories where there's any water. And so what it is right now is all these jobs that are there, these are people that are coming from BC, that are coming into the territories, and they take on these jobs. We need to have our people from the territories taking on these positions and to bring that training up here. So the project that we're working on with regards to Transport Canada to bring that training into Hay River, we are involving people from all regions. We have a conference call with them, and they provide us with the information that we need in order to develop this. So it's not just one friendship center that's doing this. It will affect other friendship centers in other regions, because we've had people coming in from Inuvik and that want to take this training. So we're not just on the local level, but there's so much more that we can do. It's unlimited what friendship centers are capable of doing. But we need that territorial level to be able to coordinate our friendship centers to develop these programs going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Cadron. I have Mr. Thompson and then Mr. Natalie. Go ahead, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's where I was getting at, because in my conversations with the Friendship Center in Fort Simpson is that we need a core base to help develop your guys' your territorial board, similar to what the NWTRPA does, Sport North, Aboriginal Sports Circle, trying to be treated as similar in that nature. So I guess my approach, or this approach to showing this gives a misleading approach to it, because you're showing the money that you have to do. Because my understanding is your boards, local or your regional friendship centers, are still going to apply for these money. They're still going to look for that money. So they're still going to have to do the reporting. But you're looking at the capacity for the territorial level. And that I fully support. I see the good work that the Friendship Center is doing, because I've been fortunate to be in the sport and rec world in the youth area, and I've seen the work that the one in Fort Providence have done, the one in Betchico, and the one in Fort Simpson. So I've seen some of the really good work that you guys have been doing, and I've heard nothing but positive stuff out of Hay River since Mr. Simpson got elected. So I've heard some of the good things you're doing. So I would strongly recommend that you encourage you guys to take the approach that you're looking for core funding for your territorial organization. I totally support that. I think it's very positive in nature, and it can help do all the good things that are happening in Fort Simpson and Hay River and Betchico and Inuvik and in Fort Smith. I believe those are the 5 centers. So I would strongly, I guess, curtail your guys' presentation saying this is what we're able to do, but we need the capacity and build on the capacity that you're talking about, because that to me is exactly what I've heard from Mr. McNabb in Fort Simpson since before the election, when I was actually working in the field, and he was always talking to me about how we can build capacity at the territorial level to help build capacity at the community level. So I applaud your guys' direction and the work you guys are doing in this, and hopefully Cabinet sees what you guys are trying to do and how this will benefit the territory. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Byrd?
Yeah, I'd like to also add to what RJ and Mr. Simpson, Mr. Thompson are saying, is that we're looking for funding at our level, at the NTU level, but we're also looking for some dollars that could come from us that we could administer to the French centers. The funding program that just came out it used to be called CCS, it says CCS on here, under programs for all the centers receive it, and UP, which is Urban Partnerships and Community Capacity Support. Now it's called Urban Partnerships for Indigenous Peoples. Under that program, it might look like a lot of money for each center. The most is, the minimum is around $138,000 for each center, and it goes up to $200,000 for the bigger centers, right? But with that $200,000, a French center can only hire executive director and a receptionist. So there's no other funding that they can apply for that's big enough for them to hire another assistant executive director, a full-time program coordinator, or program manager, finance manager, HR manager. That should also make that clear that we're also looking for funding for our centers that would also assist them in hiring, in having the capabilities to hire another employee to assist them in any way they see fit as the positions I mentioned. So that's one thing that I've seen that is coming out right now, and that's how CCO, the old community passport program was also. We could hire certain positions where that's why we only have those certain positions. We need to have the capability to have to hire more positions at the French Center level that they could support themselves. Because there's only so much that we could do, and then we also don't want to. We don't go to our centers and tell them exactly how they have to run or how to do. We just support them and assist them.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd. Ms. Crook?
Yeah, I just want to add, yes, we get $130,000, for example, in Hay River. And we have an executive director to hire and a coordinator. But we still have the building to operate, We have the O&M that we have to worry, and that's for each center. There is no money other than $130,000 given to each specific center, and they have to hire staff. They have to, to try and cover their O&M if they own, like power, fuel, you name it, it's there, repairs. So it becomes, really stressful for some of our centers to operate in the different communities. And when you think about the services that they provide or the people that come to the centers, it puts an added stress on them as well, because sometimes they have to say, well, we don't have that program running anymore, we can't afford it. So basically, I guess when you look at the funding that we do receive from the national office or from the new funding that we receive, it's not enough we continue to have to, try and find funding to provide those services and programs to our people in the different communities. So that $130,000 basically is to cover an executive director position, if we can afford a program coordinator, and then we have to look for funding to operate our own buildings.
Yeah.
So,
thank you for that. Next on my list, I have Mr. Natalie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, good morning. Appreciate the presentation in terms of what it is that you're seeking. First of all, I just wanted to acknowledge our Friendship Center in Fort Providence is very active. It's got 40 programs, and my sense from speaking with Marcus and some of the staff there, there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of, the reliability of funding, and so for some time, I think they've been working in that environment. But despite that, they're very committed, and our Friendship Center, like all other Friendship Center that exist in the NWT, are very active. I have some background in the Friendship Centers. I served as the chair back in 1987 in Fort Providence, so I'm kind of familiar with the programs. And plus, at the same time, the National Association of Friendship Centers, I had an opportunity to attend their AGM back in 1986, I believe. That was my first time going down south to a major meeting. But what I wanted to highlight is, what I'm hearing is that the Friendship Center is seeking at least an understanding with this level of government, and it's almost like the evolution of the whole National Association Friendship Center movement, so that it could be established in terms of having some level of protocol between the GNWT and the 7 Friendship Centers here in the Northwest Territories, so that perhaps maybe you might have the features of an MOU with maybe the GNWT, and not only receive perhaps funding from the federal government, but maybe add almost like as a conduit, but at the same time you have a source of funding that the GNWT could commit to your operations. I think I'm understanding that. Maybe I think there's some precedents. I support the idea of the Friendship Centers being able to be have adequate funding, but at the same time support mechanisms in place to ensure that you build up your capacities, and it's very integral. So I'm just wanted to clarify whether that's what you're intending. My understanding is that through this whole initiative of trying to undertake major initiatives, this government has partnered with agencies. One in particular is the Arctic Energy Alliance. We made some major initiatives that have been very successful. So I don't see how we cannot do this similar, maybe a model of an arrangement with the Association of Friendship Centers. So, I support what it is that maybe we could do to advance this forward. Possibly, maybe we're going to have to maybe discuss the next steps. Maybe bring it to our colleagues. Some of our colleagues are not here. So I support this, and I'd like to see this perhaps maybe elevated to another level. So that's, I guess I'm seeking some clarity. Is that the vision, what you were seeking, is perhaps an MOU with this government, respecting protocols? I have to maybe mention too that funding is quite limited in terms of what it is that the GNWT undertakes. Like, one of the things that we've been challenged with is pot of funding called the non-government organizations, or NGO funding. It's been fairly limited for some time. We've tried to get cabinet to increase that level of funding, but there's other competing priorities as well too. So I just wanted to point that out. But perhaps if we can get some clarity in terms of maybe the vision of an agreement between the GNWT and the Friendship Centers.
Thank you, Mr. Nadley. And I'm just going to add on to that. Could you give us an idea of how much money you're talking about? So both his question and my question, so that we can sort of start getting a grip on this. Thank you.
The numbers that we're talking about were about $500,000 between. So what we'd say is that NTNU would take on 80 for administration and a core-like funding, and then we administer 60 to each 7 centers. That's the numbers that we have discussed. Looking at what Alberta receives, they receive 7, and they administer well, I don't know if I have they gave me the right to say how much, but they miss her around the same amount. Like, but we include the inflation of living in the north. One of our board members, Bernice, she just left, but she's from Inuvik, and I grew up in Inuvik, and I go to every center to monitor the programs, and it's I guess I forgot throughout the years, but is very expensive to live there. I'm happy to have family in a lot of the communities, so I kind of just go and have spend time with them, because there's nowhere to the amount of the cost for food and travel and for the provincial territory agency. We have discussions between ourselves and our national association, because just to make sure that they understand that we're spending half our budget on travel, because that's what it costs to go to a community and stay there for a week, and hope to not get for the flights to run on time, right? If I get stuck there, that's the flights don't come every day, and I could be there over the weekend, and same with our board, so it definitely is a stress for how we do things, but it's part of living up here, right? So that's those are the numbers that we have come up with.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bird. Can I direct your attention to my colleague's question about whether an MOU is the right kind of mechanism for creating this agreement with the government? I don't know if you want to answer that or someone else, Mr. Rabiska.
Tony here. One of the things that we'd like to see is the recognition, and MOU will be one of them that I think will be where the NTNU and GNWT will, continue the partnership. And it's very important that one of the things that I'd like to bring up about is the Friendship Center. It's been since 70s to 80s. We went through a lot of changes, especially with government, self-government. Before that, when all these was put together. Today, looking at the past of what the Friendship Center achieved and what they've done to help the community, back in the 80s, when the Friendship Center in Bishopcombe, for example, was experiencing one of the crises, and we had only 2 staff of counselors that were working, and they're seeing over 1,450 clients a year, which is 5 times. And due to the crisis that we experienced, the Friendship Center and the staff sat together and decided, okay, these are the stuff that we're going through, and what is it that we need to do? So one thing that I had to do was to look at, let's do the stats and present it to the Ray-Ban, and just let them look at what the crisis that we're going through. So one of the things that's experienced that we had to do was to look at, this is one of the things that we had to look at is what is the community dealing with, what kind of issues are they dealing with, and how can we deal with it. And in the past, where we did the stats, one of the first issue was on the community was sexual abuse relates to residential school. And then the second issue was on loss and grief. How is the community dealing with it? Was to loss of cultural language, not only language but also death and so on. We had to come up with a plan to say, what do we do right now? It was in crisis, and the Friendship Center decided, well, let's do something on a land program, healing program. So we had a staff and board meeting and decided, okay, let's do a land program and plan. And that's where we started to look at land program, delivering on a land program, on a land treatment based on a holistic approach. So I think today, looking at that crisis and look at how we manage, but at the same time intervene, and we're proactive and make that look changes. And today we see that the Friendship Center did enormous contribution. Looking back of what we achieved today and what changes we've put together today, looking at it. And so it's what I'm saying here is that the centers in the north, the Friendship Center has enormous contribution of what they've done in the past. Today, even the community members are still talking about it. And I think that's some of the things that we'd like to continue and supporting, helping as much as we can to look at, because the foundation of all this program that's done for youth, elders, even based on cultural and all that was put together, I think it was. So, like I said, that's type of we didn't have any recognition before in the past of all the stuff we've done, all the stuff we went through. But it'll be good to look at, like MOU will be one of them that I think will be to look at the North Friendship Center finally being recognized for their contribution that they've done, the work they've done for the North and the people. I think it's going to be a really enormous and it's going to be a very contribution. I think that's where the centers are looking for. Masi.
Thank you, Tony. Ms. Kajong?
We have applied actually for the NGO funding at the NTNU level. Our goal is to bring our executive directors and one of their staff in and to coordinate efforts and do proposal development. There are some issues with that. There's so much funding out there on a federal level, but it's a struggle for some people to get through the proposal writing. So what we want to do is bring everybody together and work through these proposals and share practices, because it's nothing for me to give because we got 1.27 from the federal government for Skills Link program. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to teach these other centers. I give them my proposal. They just adapt it to their community, and then that's more money that generates back into their region. And so, and with that money, when we bring it in, we spend all that money locally. We don't go down south to purchase our products or anything. We spend that money in our communities. So by teaching our other friendship centers how to access these funds and partner with GNWT funds, all that money is going into the community and going into helping people within the community. So yes, the first step in MOU would be the start, and we want to build. We want to build the capacity of what our friendship centers can do up here. And we do intend to expand into the Sawtooth region so that we do cover all regions.
Thank you very much. We have about 15 minutes to go. I have Kevin, RJ, and Danny. Go ahead, Mr. O'Reilly.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I recognize the good work that friendship centers do. I wanted to know, like my colleagues, what the specific ask is. How much. Now I understand you want $500,000, and some of that's going to go to each of the centers, and some will stick with the council. Is this a proposal that's going to go to cabinet, and is this something you want to start in 2018-19? And if you've got a copy of a proposal, if you could give it to us, that would be helpful. But I want to make it clear, we're the regular MLAs. We do not have the purse strings. You probably recognize the battles that we had over the budget last year. Our budget planning calendar as well, we start to look at things, business plans or departmental budgets in the fall. So if you have something and you want to share it with us, the earlier you can, the better. In any event, I'm sort of curious to know who you want the proposal to go to. Is it cabinet? Is it to MACA? And so on. So if you've got a specific proposal, if you want to share it with us, that would be helpful, and let us know how much and for when and so on. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. O'Reilly. Ms. Kajong?
Yeah, we would want it to go to cabinet, because we do actually deal with every department in one way or another, from environmental cleanup to training to employment to income support to the marine economic development. We hit just about every pillar, so we would prefer to go to cabinet.
Thank you, Ms. Cadron. Could you confirm that you have a meeting scheduled with the ministers today?
Yes.
So will you be giving them the same presentation that we've just had?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Next on my list, I have RJ.
Thank you. Yeah, it would be good to go to cabinet because it's easier to get, maybe justice and EC and the other departments to part with a few bucks as opposed to one department to part with the whole $500,000. So I had a question about the infrastructure because I know when we went to Fort Providence with our government operations committee, we talked to, I think it was Marcus we talked to, and they have a lot of issues with their building there. That there's restrictions to the programming they can run because of the state of their building. I know in Hay River that Friendship Center was built how long ago, and there's been minimal upgrades, and there's always all these problems with infrastructure. So where's the money come from for stuff like that? Because I know in Providence, if they need a new building, that money has to come from somewhere, and fixing a roof isn't cheap. Where does that money come from? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Ms. Crook?
One time, we did have funding, access to funding at the National Association of Friendship Centers, which was set aside that we would negotiate for O&M, repairs or new centers. And I'm not sure at this point whether that, I haven't been in the National for about 18 years, but I'm sure my colleagues can answer that. But we in our center have applied for funding, taken funding from different places, and I'll let Sherry speak to that. Take an opportunity how we can, for example, we needed a new roof and whatever. But right now, I'm not sure whether or not that's part of the negotiations in terms of getting funding to repair the infrastructure in the community. So I'll just let Sherry speak to that.
Go ahead, Ms. Cadron.
The Soaring Eagle Friendship Center was able to apply through the CanNor funding. We did receive some from them money for infrastructure from them, but that money does not exist anymore. That pot of money is no longer there. Speaking from a national level, we are negotiating at a national level in order to get infrastructure dollars for our. I don't know exactly where the negotiation committee is with that right now, but I know that is one thing that they are lobbying for in Ottawa. I think we submitted ours as $1 million. We did an assessment on all the centers in the Northwest Territories, and that's what I'm the voice in Ottawa that's pushing for that money to come into the North at every meeting that we go to. So there is some negotiation going on there, but other than that, there is no money for infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Next on my list, I have Mr. McNeely.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Chair, pardon me.
That was a big elevation there all of a sudden.
Somebody got promoted here on a Monday morning. But I really commend organizations such as yours here in the NGO community for all the dedication and willingness to try to make a better community out there with a non-for-profit status designation. And in one of my previous careers, I had the opportunity of going to a number of meetings with the late Tom Eagle, and he really opened my eyes on the good things that we're trying to do in program delivery and community support. So I really respected Tom during those meetings there and asked him questions afterwards on the duties of friendship centers. As you had mentioned, we don't have one in the Sahtu, so at the time it was, who is the Friendship Center? What do they do? What are they about? Is it a company? I had many questions. And as I thank our colleague there from Hay River for initiating this discussion, hearing your plans and your statistics here on operations and O&M and income and core funding, which is very limited. As my other colleague Kevin had mentioned here, I look forward to your proposal so we can find out what you're going to ask for at the territorial level in terms of something to promote. We don't have controls over the O&M dollars here, but I'm certain all the colleagues of mine feel the same way on supporting your initiatives where we can. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. McNeely, any response? No. Any further questions? Seeing none, as you can see, Oh, sorry, let's go to Ms. Crook.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to meet, finally meet after so many years. You know, it does wonders for, you know, the centers to be acknowledged at this level and know that, because our member centers rely on us to try and bring their issues, concerns, challenges that they face daily, you know, delivering services to the people and support. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity for recognizing, you know, someone recognizing their work at the local centers, and thank you for your time and look forward to your support.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rabiska?
Just like to say merci for inviting, and it's been a long time. We had some ED and board members from other centers who were interested coming and be part of this meeting, but we said, well, we'll be here and we'll share the information once we get the. But like I said, they want to be part of it, and they called. But we said, so it's a very privileged to be here after many years. For me, my first career was through Friendship Center as a youth program coordinator, and changed lots. And today I'm sitting here and saying this. I want to say, Mr. Cho, thank you.
Thank you. Before we close off, I just want to encourage you to take the suggestion that Mr. O'Reilly and Mr. McNeely made to submit a proposal to us. It doesn't have to be at the level of detail that you would submit to a government authority for funding, but I think we need to have a clear idea of your ask and your rationale so that we can share it with those colleagues of ours who weren't here today. We don't have a transcript made of the public hearing usually, and so they will be starting from scratch. So if you can provide that and attach this very useful summary of your operations, I think that would reach out to them since they were unable to be here today. And I'd like to thank you very much for coming and wish you well with your meetings.
Thank you.